So just one last question before we go, because I know you have to start your trekking very soon.
The hiking.
Yes, the hiking.
Italian Wine Podcast. Chin Chin with Italian wine people.
Welcome to a new episode of On the Road with Stevie Kim. Today, Stevie talks with Alessandro Torcoli at the VinoVip Summit in Cortina. Alessandro assumed the role of director and editor of Civiltà bere, which was founded by his late grandfather, Pino Cail. He and Stevie discuss his personal journey in the wine sector, the upcoming summit in Forte dei Marmi, and his goals for the future with GenZ in his sights.
Hello, everybody. My name's Stevie Kim, and this is the Italian Wine Podcast On the Road series. Today, we're in one of my favorite places of all time, Cortina, and we are here with Alessandro Torcoli. Ciao, Ale.
Ciao, Stevie.
So first, tell me who you are for the people, for our audience. You're super famous, but maybe our audience who don't know you quite as of yet, would you mind telling us who you are?
Well, I'm a journalist. I'm an Italian journalist and publisher, and my magazine is the Civiltà bere, the Italian wine magazine. And this is a family story, because my grandfather was in the business, was a wine journalist himself, and then I continued, and I decided to open up a little bit the perspective of our magazine, going abroad and visiting all the wine regions in the world and giving feedbacks to the Italian readers about those regions. And that's it. And secondarily, I'm a wine organizer in a way. I like to organize a couple
of wine events.
Like wine events, mm-hmm. yes, specifically wine events.
So we're kind of similar, except you've been in the business for a very long time. And I recall when I first started with wine, I hadn't a clue, and I still don't. And I remember you were one of my guides to kind of navigate this Italian wine industry. So I know you, of course, your grandfather was Pino Cail.
Yes.
Would you mind telling us who he was and why he is such an iconic figure for Italian wine?
Sure. Well, Pino Cail was the first who gathered the Italian wine sector and the producers that at the time, the late 70s, didn't know each other. And he used to recall the time when he, for the first time, he organized a meeting between the two icon men of Italian wine, Angelo Gaia and Piero Antinori.
And they're still the two iconic men,
they're still, yes.
Personality.
Yes, and they didn't know each other. Mm-hmm. And so that at the time, Civiltà bere.
And when was that? That
was the late 70s.
And they hadn't met?
They hadn't met before.
Incredible.
Yeah. At the airport, before leaving for a wine tour, a promotional tour in the US. And that was the first time that they met. And then Pino Cail started to organize these wine events in New York with Lucio Caputo, another iconic figure of the past, and then in other cities and countries. And those were the first roadshow for the wine ever organized. So that's why for the Italian wine, yes. And that's why it now is still so popular in the community.
So Alessandro, how old are you now?
47.
Yes, but when did you start, working with wine?
Yeah. I was a teen.
You were a teenager,
yes.
And with your grandfather?
Yes, of course. He had a past in advertising.
Okay.
Before starting Civiltà bere, and was a marketing man. And instead, I decided that wine was really interesting for me as a subject, and I wanted to understand it in depth. And so I started studying at the Sommelier Association and many other
ICE.
The ICE, yes, and many other schools. And I decided that I wanted to be a very specialistic wine writer.
So your grandfather actually was not a wine expert then?
No, he wasn't.
Oh, I didn't realize that. So tell us about your wine journey. So you worked with your grandfather,
yes.
And then you are with also the magazine, right? Civiltà bere.
Yeah. Yeah, I started there and I remained there, but trying to get the knowledge of wine in many ways, studying at the associations, as I told you, and studying, reading many books about that, and attending master classes about this and that, Italian wines, but not only those, and on the road. Then I learn on the road. Then I feel really a part of this community.
You basically
Italy,
know
but
every
yes.
single Italian wine producer.
Yes, and then in the last 10 years also abroad, I met many people in the main wine regions. So it's like a very big family for me.
So, of course, one of the things that you did, I don't know for how many years you've been doing this, but is this event that you organize in Cortina. It's called VinoVip. Has it always been called VinoVip?
Yes. It was the name that my grandfather gave to the event, VinoVip, VinoVip. That means all the important people in the wine sector should be here and share the knowledge and the views. This is for us, it's like Davos for the Italian Davos. In Aspen, for example, they organize something like food and wine, or for finance in Italy at Cernobbio on the Como Lake. And we wanted to do something similar for Italy, to let the Italian wine people meet.
So how many days, for how many years have you been organizing VinoVip?
Personally?
Yes.
It's like my first edition was 09.
Oh.
09. So it's like
13 years.
13 years.
When did it start?
And started in 1997.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. It's biannual, so it's every 2 years in Cortina.
Right.
And now we alternate with Forte dei Marmi.
Okay. Tell us the format of VinoVip. What does it entail? Because yesterday there was kind of a movies, you had a talk show, and then there's a trekking this morning. Actually, you're all dressed to go.
Yeah, in fact. Well, we have two pillars in VinoVip, which are the talk show, where people talk. Of course, we choose 2, 3, 4 speakers that introduce some topics that we're interested in, and then when we have time, there's a debate or just a talk with a spokesman. And the second pillar is grand tasting. It's a big tasting with the wines of all the wine producers that are invited at VinoVip. This year we have 59. Usually are 55, 56, or more, a small number of producers, because we organize that tasting in spectacular places here in Cortina that usually are not very big. So we used to go at the Rifugio Faloria, that is a hut on the mountain at 2,000 meters, and it's not that small, but not more than 55 producers can go there. And this year we'll go to the clubhouse at the golf club in Cortina, another small place in the wood. So beautiful places, but small. And is that also open to wine lovers, or? Yes, the grand tasting is a ticketed event. Yes, the grand tasting is ticketed. The rest is for our hosts, basically. And around these two pillars of the event, we organize different things for each edition. This year, you mentioned the movie, but other times we had wine conversation with Piero Antinori or important people, or we had many different things. It depends. And tell us a little bit about the movie. Okay. Like why? It's a weird thing, because the movie has nothing to do with wine, of course. It's a famous Italian movie of the 70s, but the producer of this comedy was the father of an important Italian producer that is an host at VinoVip. The winery is Rocca delle Macie, and the producer is Sergio Zingarelli, and his father was a movie producer, and this was his greatest success. And his father's name was? Italo Zingarelli, yeah. Yes, very famous. The movie that we had yesterday night was the most successful in Italian cinemas ever. And what is the
the title of the movie.
The movies continuavano a chiamarlo Trinità,
Okay.
with Bud Spencer and Terence Hill. And it's not a spaghetti movie,
Yes.
because a spaghetti western, because Sergio Leone was the spaghetti western man, but it's a comedy based on those model spaghetti western. So it's a nice thing.
So, Alessandro, you've been organizing these events for about 13 years now. And during the pandemic, of course, like many of us,
Yes, of
we
course.
had to adapt.
Yep.
What were the greatest challenges during the pandemic, and what did you do about it?
Well, I tried to enhance some jobs that we had already. We were doing, like the podcast, like yours, or the
So you have a
YouTube.
podcast
I
too.
have
What is it called?
I Maestri del Vino Italiano. Italian
Okay,
wine masters.
so it's in Italian.
It's in Italian, yes. Conversations with Italian producers.
Okay.
Yes, about their lives.
So
their
for our
activities.
friends out there, they know that I am a great advocate of podcasts, of
Yeah, of
course.
course.
So it's called Maestri del Vino
Vino
Italiano with Alessandro
Yeah.
Torcoli. Check that out.
Thank you. And the podcast, the videos, IGTV, these small movies for the Instagram or the social, and we tried to reorganize something that we had at the magazine. So it was 2 years to think and rethink what we were doing. And the biggest challenge was to keep the contact with our clients, the producers, the wine community in general, because we couldn't meet, and wine meeting is essential, but we could not. So we tried to video call, and try to keep in touch.
So it was a lot of the virtual meetings and events.
Yeah,
right, in a
we
way.
used that. Yes, I didn't like that much. I think it was really fatiguing to stay all day long on the video.
Yeah, it's the Zoom fatigue.
The Zoom fatigue. Yeah. I suffered it.
Yeah. So now, what is your outlook? Because in reality, we're still cohabitating with COVID still, right? It's not over. The game is not over. So, like, what are your plans now? How are you going to go forward? What is your vision for?
I try to organize what our specialties, our main events like this, or simply the best. That is another tasting that we organize in Milano, our city. We are based in Milano, and all the things that we had already done, but with a special attention. That's my attitude toward this.
So, Ale, I want to ask you a personal question, right? So, what are your personal ambitions? But just in general, people have such great things coming from you, because in a way, as if you were, you had to take Pino's place in a way. But you, as Alessandro Torcoli, what are your personal goals? What would you like to? I know you're, of course, different from your grandfather. Now I realize. What are your personal goals within the next, I would say, 5 years?
Well, first is to maintain the success of Civiltà del Bere. That is not easy, because it's a magazine, a print magazine.
Yeah, and people after internet, right? People
of
get
course.
free content all the time.
All the time. So my goal is to keep very strong attention on my magazine, and to have subscriptions, because people find something interesting to pay. That is a big challenge today, and so there's a lot of work that didn't exist 20 years ago, because you have to really to offer something special from an editorial point of view. But secondarily, I just want to do my job honestly, with a professional attitude, and to be recognized as a serious wine expert and very authoritative wine expert. That's my goal, and it's different from Pino's goal, because he didn't want to be considered an expert.
So, VinoVip, we're back to Cortina now. So you're still planning to do VinoVip the next
year. We'll go.
Year?
Yeah, we'll go to
Forte di
to the
Marmi.
seaside.
How are they different, Cortina and Forte di Marmi?
They have something very strong in common. There are two places where the most influential and important people in Italy meet for summer, and very exclusive places. So, and also the atmosphere, even if you are once on the mountains, the other time on the sea, the atmosphere is not that different, because it's like old important places where you find the villas and the houses of very important industrial people. So the atmosphere has something similar, but of course the temperature is different, but the format is the same, with a talk show and with the ground tasting and some tastings, other meetings around.
So just one last question before we go, because I know you have to start your trekking very soon.
The hiking.
We have a serious problem with the future generation, because if you know why, the younger generation, they're not keen about wine. So what do you suggest? What are your ideas in terms of stimulating, educating the wine consumption of the next generation? Have you got any secret?
Well, I've got three children.
How old are they?
They are 12, 14, and 16.
Okay, good.
So they're just starting to look at wine in my job. So I have a laboratory at home, and
so you just give them wine?
I share the wine a little bit. I sip sometimes to the older one, and I look at them, at their attitude towards my job and wine, and I see, if you talk about wine in a bit pop way, to have, of course, to talk about wine, what is behind wine, looking at the labels, the packaging now is very important, and they get curious from details, like labels, or a short story that I tell while sharing food at the table, and I see that they are interested. And my daughter, who is 16, sometimes tastes a little bit of wine. And she appreciates more white than red, of course. Like everybody, I think it's for myself starts with the white, with light white, maybe a little sweet. But I see that they are not away from wine. They are not against wine. Just sometimes the storytelling of wine today in Italy, at least, is still too exclusive, and like people wanting to keep the secrets and their secrets. Of course, this is not the way to involve and engage people, especially young people. But I see that also when I have the friends of my children at home, and they get to know that I'm in this industry, they're very curious. Oh wow, wine! So you travel, you go to the wine regions. So there's something positive. And so my thought is that we don't have to spoil this. They have the curiosity, but there's something in the way that stop it. Maybe because of the price, maybe because of the way that we tell wine. I don't know what, I have to study that. But wine is, for almost everybody, something interesting. So we just have not to spoil it.
Okay. And that's it. This
Thank
is
you,
the final
Stevie.
wrap. Okay? Ciao ragazzi, alla prossima.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap. Tune in next time for more fascinating stories from the world of wine. Are you thirsty for more Italian wine treasures? Go to ItalianWinePodcast.com or find us on SoundCloud, Himalaya, Spotify, or wherever you get your pods. Don't forget to subscribe and like all our channels. Chin chin, and thanks for listening.